Thank you for this invitation to speak at the NC Native American Youth Organization Conference. I'll share a little bit today about one of my favorite plants, the common elderberry, also known as Sambucus canadensis or Sambucus nigra canadensis. This plant is native to the United States as well as Europe, Asia, and even parts of Africa. I'll talk a little bit about how this plant is used medicinally within our tribal communities here in North Carolina, but also across the country among other tribes and even our non-native communities. Before talking about elderberry, though, I do want to talk about the NC Native American Ethnobotany Project. The NCNAEP is about maintaining strong, resilient Native American communities through knowledge and environmental stewardship. We work within community to reintroduce and otherwise revitalize relationships with our native wild plant relatives. As such, we collect medicinal plant stories, we share cultural value of our wild plants, and we even document and disseminate this collective cultural knowledge in a meaningful way within our tribal communities. We do this by working directly with elders in our community to help identify plants and collect specimens for identification. And we also help our tribal communities enrich their own medicinal gardens with new native medicinal plants. Before we talk about identification, I want to share with you just some of the many medicinal uses of elderberry that we learned from talking to tribal leaders here in North Carolina, as well as some contributions made from other tribes nationally and knowledge that we've gained from herbalists as well as the scientific literature. First, let's talk about the flower heads. The flower heads of the common elderberry can reach up to 12 inches in diameter. Each flower head has many tiny flowers arranged in an umbel shape. Among the Cherokee and the Lumbee, the flowers are taken as a tea to reduce fevers and to induce sweating. The Cherokee also use the flower tea as a wash for skin irritations, whereas the Lumbee use the flower tea as a laxative and as a diuretic for colds and flus. The flowers can also be used to stimulate the circulatory system and is a well-known anti-inflammatory. Of all parts of the plant, the flowers are the safest to ingest, as other parts of the plant contain various amounts of cyanoglycosides that can cause nausea and vomiting if ingested in large amounts. The berries of the elderberry plant typically ripen around August and September here in North Carolina. And our tribal communities have a long history of eating the berries as jams, jellies, preserves, and other sweet treats. Additionally, though, the berries can be boiled with honey to create a syrup that is used to fight colds and flus as well as respiratory issues. And we often see this in the Waccamaw-Siouan tribes, Coharie, the Halawa-Saponi, the Lumbee, and even the Cherokee tribes. And that's just to name a few. The Lumbee, though, also are known to make an elderberry wine to treat seasonal colds and flus. Tea made from the berries has also been used to treat headaches and inflammation. When cooked, the berries are an excellent superfood because it's full of antioxidants, iron, potassium, vitamin C, bioflavonoids, and even anthocyanins. And even the scientific literature mentions that elderberries are a strong immunomodulator. The leaves, stems, and roots of elderberry are also used for medicine, but their use is not recommended unless you're a trained professional. Because parts of the elderberry, as I mentioned earlier, contain high levels of cyanoglycosides, and this can result in extreme nausea and vomiting. Traditionally, though, healers in the Cherokee and Lumbee tribes have used the roots to stimulate circulation, and the bark has been used as a purgative to treat swelling and internal pain by the Cherokee and the Huma tribes. The Lumbee have used the leaves to treat swelling and skin issues like hives, burns, and other sores, because the plant, as I mentioned before, is highly anti-inflammatory. I'm often asked if elderberry can be used to treat COVID-19 symptoms. And as far as I know at this time, elderberry has not been tested against any strain of the COVID-19 virus. To date, in fact, no herbs have been shown to be preventative, curative, or even to treat COVID-19. Some people have actually suggested that the elderberry, because it is an immunomodulator, as I mentioned earlier, could result in potentially harmful cytokine storm when it is taken to treat COVID-19. So cytokines are cellular communication molecules that the immune system uses to communicate with itself and mobilize the healing process. However, a cytokine storm is an overreaction of this process, and it's an immunological occurrence that occurs with some medications and has been shown to occur with the COVID-19 virus. However, elderberry has not been shown to cause cytokine storm. Now, one study looked at the popular sambucol that you can find in any grocery store, elderberry syrup product, and it provided evidence that the product supported a healthy cytokine production and was related to optimal immune function that was beneficial during the flu. However, the research did not suggest at all that it stimulated a cytokine storm in patients that had an underlying condition, or that elderberry may tax the immune system. So included in this talk is a video on identifying elderberry. But before watching the video on identifying elderberry in nature, please understand that wild collection of elderberry is not encouraged without the guidance of an expert. There are at least 10 different species of elderberry, and 4 of those species are commonly found in North America, and this includes Sambucus racemosi, Sambucus nigra, Sambucus mexicana, and Sambucus canadensis. Now, Sambucus nigra and Sambucus canadensis are often used interchangeably and are referred to in some places as Sambucus nigra variety canadensis, or also known as black elderberry or common elderberry. The other species that I just mentioned have different concentrations of cyanoglycosides and should not be presumed to have the same biological effect, however. And one last thing. Before you think of harvesting elderberry for your own use, please be 100% certain that you have the correct plant. Some plants that look like elderberry and grow in the same places are deadly, and this includes the water hemlock. Okay, so once you've identified your plant, please consider harvesting during late fall and take cuttings for rooting new plants. The elder plants are eager to reroot, and they make great landscape plants when planted in moist, fertile wetland soil. These plants spread very easily, and so there's no reason to collect more than you need. I just want to take a moment to thank my co-director, Dr. Jillian DeGiselle, as well as my friends on the Community Advisory Board, Mr. Greg, Randy, Mr. Archie, Ms. Darlene Linwood, and Dr. Nancy Turner, who have been so supportive of this project. I also want to thank the Wakamasuan, Halawasaponi, and the Kohari tribes that helped me so much with this work. And finally, I want to thank all the elders that contributed their time and knowledge in helping me collect information on elderberry, as well as other medicinally important and culturally important plants in North Carolina. Thank you.